All right. Well, Shabbat Shalom. Well, I'm sorry. Shalom to all those who are watching here in the future, and those who are here presently today. I'm Jose and with Brandon Muchmore. We co-host here the Covenant Calendar Club and Prophecy Club. You know, where we bring you the prophetics as well as how to keep the ordinances of the calendar and walk out the feast as He commanded. And so we're here, blessed to be here every week and to fellowship, to show you what we have learned, so you in turn can hopefully be edified by the things he brings forth through our research. And well, today it's going to be a part two of a lunar Shabbat versus the Torah. And basically, this is gonna not gonna go past part two. Yeah, last time I did go over how the Torah was able to refute, the Genesis account of this lunar Shabbat doctrine. And this week we're going to use even more scripture to be able to put this lunar Shabbat to the test and to rest. And also, before we proceed with that, I'm going to also go over a little bit more in detail what the word Shabbat means. Okay, so we can build at least some foundation before we start inspecting the other calendar. All right, so I hope you all are very blessed by this, and I'll go ahead and share a screen here with you all. Okay. All right. Um, so here we are again in part two at the lunar Shabbat versus the Torah. We're going to go over some really good Torah verses and narratives of the Bible that are going to shed some light into this calendar, and we're going to be able, through the Torah lenses, expose some of the flaws, and sometimes we find good things and I'll point those out as well. Well, I hope you'll enjoy it. I'm going to go ahead and get started, and shalom to all those who are watching. All right, so we're going to go first through with the definition of the Hebrew word Shabbat. So we're going to start off with the law of first mention. This is the purest form of the words. If one is looking to find out what the definition of a word is, we always want to use the Bible to interpret the Bible. And the same goes along with the definition of each words based on their context. So this gives us some foundation, some strength on how to better interpret other passages throughout Scripture. So the law of first mention on Shabbat is first seen on Exodus 16:22 to 23. And I will read, "It happened that on the sixth day they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for each one. And all the rulers of the congregation came and told Moshe. He said to them, that this is which Yahuwah has spoken. Tomorrow is a solemn rest, a holy Shabbat to Yahuwah. Bake that which you want to bake, and boil that which you want to boil. And all that remains over it, lay up for yourself, to be kept until the morning." Now, the Torah here is defining the word for us. The word Shabbat is defined as a solemn or set apart rest, and has been unified with the 6 working days, which occur prior to the 7th day. We have also the lexicon. So what does the lexicon have to do? How does the lexicon define it? Well, I did not just use this one, I did verify others, but it seemed redundant for me to keep using the same answers because I kept running into the same answer. So I didn't want to give you too many witnesses when they're all testifying pretty much the same, or at least mostly the same. So the Gesenius lexicon defines Shabbat as the seventh day of the week, as like in Exodus, 16:25, and also Shabbatical year, every seventh year in which the land was not tilled, and perhaps a week, which is in 23, Leviticus 23:15, and Deuteronomy 16:9. Now the word Shabbat in Leviticus, okay, sorry about that. Okay. Okay. So the word Shabbat, seventh day of the week, in Leviticus is defined as the word to be the seventh cycle that repeats itself over and over without any interruption. Okay. Leviticus 23:15, and you shall count for yourself from the day after the Shabbat, 7 Shabbats shall be completed. Count 50 days to the day after the seventh Shabbat. Okay. So we have here, we count, right, and we have on Leviticus 23, we count ourselves from the day after the Shabbat. 7 Shabbats shall be complete. Count 50 days to the day after the Shabbat. This is talking about the Feast of Weeks. Okay, so there is a cycle that have to do with this word, with the seventh day week. And some people will say, well, how do we know that has always been the case, and is it ever interrupted? And that's a good question, because we do want the scripture to define to us if that's the case. And according so far on Leviticus 23, it seems to be the case, because you can only count up to 50 days if you count 49 days, and the next day is Shabbat. So if it was interrupted, it would not amount to that, would it? Okay. So we're going to look a bit on the root of the word Shabbat. The etymological dictionary of Hebrews has it defined as ceasing ongoing activity, as it is listed on Genesis 2, or celebrating the Shabbat, or eliminating God's day of rest. Work loss, compensation, temporary resting place. So we also have a law first mentioned on the root of the word Shabbat. Um, we find that in Genesis 2:2. On the seventh day, Elohim ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. Okay, so the root word of the word Shabbat is pronounced Shabbath, 7673 in Hebrew, and we see it mentioned in Genesis 2:2. Since the law of transmission, this will give us a good understanding of how this word is to be applied in the rest of the scriptures. Now, this is clearly connected to a week that consists of 6 days of work and the seventh day of rest. Now that we know that the word Shabbat and its root, based on the law first mentioned, define the seventh day as the Shabbat, and it is connected to the 6 days of work. So let us now solidify this truth by taking a closer look at some of these Hebrew words. Okay. Now I also wanted to give you the definition right here in the lexicon of the root word of Shabbat. So what do we have here? To rest, to keep as a day of rest, to cease, to desist, leave off, to celebrate the Shabbat. Okay, so now we have so now we understand that the word Shabbat, and also its root word, they both imply a 7 day week with 6 days of work and also a rest day. So what we have here, we have the seventh day Shabbat in the number 7 and week. And you're going to see some common things, some common threads between these 3 words, which are the elements found on a weekly Shabbat. Um, as you can see there, the strong numbers are very close already because it is rooted on 7. We have the transliteration Shabbat, then we have 7 is Sheba or Seba, or then we have week, which is Sabua. Parts of speech, uh, and they're all nouns. And then we have the definitions. Well, we're pretty common. We have Shabbat, the Day of Atonement, Shabbat, weeks or years or weeks. And then we have 7, which is 7 or ordinal or cardinal, and 7 by 7 week or a holy number. Okay, and that reminds me of our brother here today, Cameron. It is a holy number that he's been revealed by the Most High. So we have here week, 7, a week, a group of 7 days or years. As you can see, we're looking at the same family here. So we have here the week to week, 7 weekly years. So we have the days, repetitive week, then and well, I just wanted to let you know that there are teachers out there who have to be questions. They're you know that are teaching that breaking the 7th day week to construct a Torahless calendar. And I think you've all seen some of those out there. But just so you know, this covenant calendar will never go against Torah. Okay, and if anyone finds fault or challenges me in that, I'll be happy to fix my view, and I welcome any correction, because I do want to make sure that it is Torah based at all times, because that is how Yahusha got into the promised land, by keeping and meditating on the commandments. So and so we too see that in our future. All right, so we have the so we have Leviticus 20:25. But before I read that, I wanted to also read to you Isaiah 66:23. From one month to the next, and from one Shabbat to the next, all people will come to worship me, says Yahuwah. That's in Isaiah 66. So from one Shabbat to the next. So we see a continuation of Shabbats right there just in Isaiah. Okay. Now we have in Leviticus 25:2, we have here, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land which I give you, then shall the land keep the Shabbat to Yahuwah. 6 years you shall sow your field, and 6 years you shall prune your vineyard and gather in its fruit. And then verse 25:4, but in the 7th year shall be a Shabbat, a special Shabbat for the land, a Shabbat for Yahuwah. Okay, you shall neither sow your field nor prune your vineyard. And verse 8, and you shall number 7 Shabbats of years for yourself, 7 times 7 years. And the time of the 7th Shabbat of the year shall be to you 49 years. Okay, that is math, that is in scripture. And as you can see, there is no breakage, there's no, intercalary or balancing or non-weeks. I mean, there is a continuation of weekly years as much as there are continuation of weekly cycles, 7-day cycles as well. Okay, so we see that continuation. We see that also in Shavuot, which I'll be happy to go into a little more detail here in just a moment. Okay, so it is pretty clear that each week is followed by another, and there is no lapse in between. The Torah has defined that there are 7 cycles between each yearly Shabbat, and they are constant. And so, as we can see in the math being used by Leviticus 25:8, 7 times 7 is 49. Okay, there are no 5 or 10 or any other number that composes a weekly cycle. Each week cycle is composed of 7 years. Our Father does not confuse anyone. Again, we see another witness on 2 Chronicles 36:21. This took place to fulfill Yahuwah's message spoken through Jeremiah and lasted until the land experienced its sabbatical years. All the time of its desolation, the land rested in order to fulfill the 70 years. So each sabbatical year consists of 7 years, as seen in this verse. As you can witness, 70 years is divisible by the number 7. You can see right there, all the way to 70. No breakage, nothing. And so now we're going to move into the Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks timeline. And I'll be happy to, we're going to see how this aligns with the lunar calendar and see if scripture itself aligns with what they believe is true. We'll allow the word to be, and everybody else to be true, and Yahuwah be true, and let everybody else be a liar. Remember, be a liar. So we'll just see what Yahuwah has to say about this. So we have here another scriptural references that will provide proof that the weekly cycles do not break as the Feast of Shavuot. Okay, so we have Leviticus 23:15. Well, it says, check out their ordinance. And you shall count from the next day after Shabbat, from the day that you brought the omer of the wave sheaf offering, 7 full weeks Shavuot, until the next day after the last week Shabbat. You shall have number 50 days, and you shall offer a new grain offering to Yahuwah. Now, if we count 7 times 7, we end up with 49 days. Okay. And that is why the following days is counted as 50 days. Now, the principle of a continuous week cycle without interruptions is to be constant. Now, when we look at the lunar calendar, this will not make much sense. Now, let us look at this calendar they made aligned with the ordinance of Shavuot and see if they match up. This is what it looks like when you overlay the ordinance over this calendar. So what we have here, we're looking for 49 days, just like the scripture says, or 50 days because the day after is the 50th day. But we know 7 weeks equals 49 days. So what we have here, we have the Feast of First Fruit, which happens the day, according to them, all the time, the day after the unleavened bread. Okay, so it always happens the 16th. That's their wave, their first fruits. So what we have here, we have to. Well, I already counted for you, so you don't have to count all the way to here. Okay, so this is right here where that second arrow is on the bottom. Okay, that would be 40. That should be exactly. That's what they consider the day before the Feast of Weeks. It should be 49 days because according to scripture, the Feast of Weeks, which is the day after, is the 50th day. So till that second arrow, it should be 49 days according to scripture. But no, it's not. It's 52 days counted from the day of the Omer count to the last day of the 7th-day week. So that means that the Shavuot to them would be 53 days later. 53 days later. So, see, I mean, we got to really be balanced with scripture. We have to, well, first we have to believe what scripture says, and then allow that to be the final authority in our lives. This is what man-made calendars have. They do. It ends up Well, becoming a doctrine of man, not of Yah, because it doesn't line up with Scripture. Okay, so basically, what I did was very simple. I just counted from here. I counted every day, even this one, because that is an actual day we actually live. It's not like we just make it go away. It is a day that we live, and this is also another day that we live, and so is this. Even to them, it's not. It's not part of the week, but we having a problem here, Houston, because it says here that there are 50 days to hear. So we have to count every day. We have to be honest with ourselves and count every single day to 50. Well, if well, that's the thing. We are being honest, and this is why this is being exposed. So so we'll go to the next one here. So what we have here, we have the lunar calendar and how it doesn't count the first day of the month to be part of the week. Okay, so for those who watched the last teaching, we did a component of what how the calendar works, and they don't consider the first day of the month, to be a part of the week. Okay, so um, even though there's no scriptural reference that deny that the first day of the month is not in a week, there's no scriptural reference that actually substantiate that. Okay. All right. Now, there are some teachers of the lunar calendar that believe that the new moon have the same application as the seventh day Shabbat in regards to no work, for the exemption of some priestly duties. In the Torah, there are no ordinances that mandate a day of no work for the first day of the month. Exodus 12:2, Numbers 10:10, Numbers 28:11. There were some limited restrictions not to sell on the day of the first month, as it is seen on Amos 8:4 and 5, but this had to do with regulations that had to do with commerce. See, a lot of them passed this on as Torah, and we have to be very cautious about those things that they are actually um, you know teaching. Okay, so we have on the next slide here the actual ordinances of the first day of the month. And I'll read. Also, in the day of your gladness, in your appointed feast, and at the beginning of your months, you shall blow the trumpets. As many of you who join us here on Rosh Kodesh, we do this every month, every month, and over your burnt offering and over your sacrifices, over of your peace offerings, that they may be a memorial for you before Elohim. I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. These are some scriptural references that indicate a first day of the month, but they don't consider these days to be part of the week. Okay? Keep that in mind. They don't consider that day part of the week. Okay. So on another witness here, we have Genesis 1:5, and Elohim called the light day and the darkness he called night. So the evening and the morning were the first day. This is the first day of the month because it is the first day into existence. But they don't consider this to be, well, a day. Well, I think they consider it to be day two, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but again, I mean, it's misinterpreted. It's miscalculated, as you can see. It's renamed. It's reinterpreted is what it is. Okay. So on Genesis 8:13, we have here when Noah removed the covering of the ark, and it happened on the first day of the month, the first day of the second month, and they recited their ancestry by families by their father's house according to the number of names. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I skip one here? I may have. Oh, here it is. I apologize. It was on the same slide. So what we have here, we have, excuse me, the first day of the month. When what did he do? He removed the covering of the ark. I mean, that took some work. Now they do say that some priestly things are allowed, including this verse right here. But we have to really be balanced all the way across. I mean, I think it's important that you know, claim one thing. We have to be honest with certain trajectories that they're trying to lead people to. So, in regards to this, I do. I mean, I personally, and according to Scripture, and many of us here in this calendar club know that the priests sometimes were ordered to do certain things on Shabbats, and that was okay because it was a priestly thing to do. Okay, so we'll move to the next one here. Now, Numbers 117. Um, This when Moshe and Aaron took the man who had been um, mentioned by name, and they assembled the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they recited their ancestors' family. And so basically, um, this is where they got numbered in the wilderness. Okay, this was a day that all the families had to complete a census, basically, and this would have taken much attention away from their rest, and this was obviously something that, in the grand scale, which it was, had to have been prepared by many people working. Okay. And we have Ezra 7:9. On the first day of the first month, he began his journey from Babylon. On the first day of the first month, he came to Jerusalem according to the good hand of his Elohim upon him. Now, this says that this says that this is something that was allowed, or this is something that they say is allowed on the first month. Some priestly things about traveling. Now, this is something that I do agree that you can pretty much do this type of things on the first month, but not but that's not just for the priest. You can travel. Anyone can travel on the first day of the month, whether you are a priest, whether people come from the out there or not, and even during those times. Now, there was no laws mentioned in the Bible that restrict traveling on the first day of the month. Yeah. Okay, now we have Leviticus 23:23. This basically, these are just some additional witnesses that they believe don't count as a weekly day. So what do we have here? We have the first day of the month of the seventh, the Feast of Trumpets. You shall have a Shabbat day of a memorial, blowing of trumpets, a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work on it, and you shall do an offering made by fire to Jehovah. This is not a weekly. This is nowhere in the week. This is just a non-day. Okay. Now we also have Deuteronomy 1:3. Now it came to pass on the 14th year in the 11th month, in the first day of the month, that Moshe spoke to the children of Israel according to all that Yahuwah had given him and commandments to them. The context here is right before Israel entered the promised land. And there's a lot more. I'm just going to give you one more here, but there was many more first days of the month that were all throughout the narratives of the Bible, and which they didn't consider a day. Now, Ezekiel 20, or at least a day of the week. Ezekiel 26:1. And it came to pass in the 11th year, on the first day of the month, that the word of Yahuwah came to me, saying, many other revelations come to Ezekiel in the first. And this is just one of many revelations that came to Ezekiel on the first day of each month. If you all recall the reading or Matthew's teaching, you know that this was done usually on the first day of the month is when he had his revelations. Um, Now, nowhere does it say that we can't celebrate the first day of the month by calling an assembly and blowing the trumpets. And nowhere in Scripture does it say that it is also a day of rest, as they proclaim. Okay. So what we have here is the no work to be done on Shabbat. Okay. So we now that we have covered, what they consider a day or not a day or a week or what should be in a week or not. Now we're going to see if they are honest with their own doctrine, with what they should people work and what they really rest. And let's see if Israel actually broke commandments or they kept them, because you know it, we that's something that we have to be balanced here, and see if this holds any water. So let's find out if Israel worked or didn't work on certain on a Shabbat. So let's go ahead and read Exodus 28. Remember, Zakar, to recollect, to bring to mind the day Shabbats, to observe them, a kadosh set apart. 6 days you shall do no labor and do all your work, but on the seventh day is the day of Shabbat of Yahuwah your Elohim. In it shall not do any work, nor your sons, nor your daughters, nor your male servants or your female servants, nor your cattle, nor your stranger, nor the convert that is within your gates. For in 6 days Yahuwah made the Shemaim and the earth and the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore Yahuwah blessed the Shabbat day and set it apart. The seventh day of rest was instituted from the beginning. He's taking us back to the beginning when he instituted it. Okay. So, as we already had explained, they believe that the 15th of each month is a Shabbat and no work is to be done. Now, this is not like their new moon day or new moon. This is actually Shabbat. Now, they understand that there is a difference based on their doctrine. And in Shabbat, of course, 7 days way more stricter, and they know that. Well, let's see if they are consistent with this. Now, if they departed Ramses on the 15th day, that means that it would have been a seventh day Shabbat according to the lunar Shabbat calendar. Now, let us see what they did on this day. Numbers 33:3. They departed from Ramses in the first month on the 15th day of the first month. On the day after the Passover, the children of Israel went out with boldness in the sight of all the Egyptians. On the first day you shall remove the leaven from all your houses. Exodus 12:34. So the people took their dough before it was leavened, having their kneading bowls bound up and their clothes in their shoulders. Now the children of Israel had done according to the word of Moshe. And they had asked from the Egyptians articles of silver, articles of gold, and clothing. And Yahuwah had given them, the people, favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they granted them whatever they requested. Thus they plundered the Egyptians. Then the children of Israel journeyed from Ramesses to Sukkot, about 600,000 men on foot, besides children. Mixed multitude went with them also with a flock of herds, a great deal of livestock. Does that look like a day of rest to you? I mean, and this is supposed to happen, right? On a seventh day Shabbat according to the lunar calendar, or the lunar Shabbat calendar. Well, let's look at another scripture. We have here 3 days of travel. Okay, so um, did they also do something similar later down the road? Well, let's find out, as they did in the Exodus. Now, let us remember that the fourth commandment prohibits servile work to be done on Shabbat. Now, based on Genesis account and other scriptural witnesses, we can be certain that a full day is 24 hours in length. Now, let us inspect the narrative and witness if they were able to keep the seventh day Shabbat, or at least if they think Israel was able to. Now, Numbers 10:11, it reads, and it came to pass on the 20th day of the second month, in the second year, that the cloud was taken up from off the tabernacle of the testimony. Numbers 10:33, and they departed from the mount of Yahuwah. 3 days' journey in the ark of the testimony of Yahuwah went before them in 3 days' journey to search out a resting place for them. So, according to Numbers 10, they left on the 20th and they traveled 3 days. So, does anyone see the problem here? Okay, if Israel worked and labored and traveled on the Shabbat, wouldn't this mean that the fourth commandment was being fulfilled? I mean, or broken. I mean, I don't think Yahuwah would have told them to do all this labor during a Shabbat, as this would have been contrary to Yahuwah's covenant to take the Shabbat day of rest. So, as you can see, according to the calendar, it overlaps the 22nd day of the month, which they call a seventh day Shabbat, and it was part of their 3-day journey. How they're going to like refute this, I have no clue. I don't know. And we're just using scripture here, okay? Okay. So, I hope that this lands on good soil later, because I know everybody that's here has done studies on this for a long time. Has been with us for a while. So we go to the next one here. We got the 40 years of manna. Now there were no transitional days mentioned during the 40 years in the wilderness. The scriptures reveal that there were no other days that the manna fell other than the 6 days of work between each Shabbat. And we read Exodus 16:26. 6 days you shall gather, but on the seventh day, the Shabbat, there will be none. Now, it happened that some of the people went out on the seventh day to gather, but they found none. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, how long do you refuse to keep the commandments that are in my laws? See, for Yahuwah has given you the Shabbat. Therefore, he gives you on the sixth day bread for 2 days. Let every man remain in this place. Let no man go out of his place on the seventh day. So the people rested on the seventh day. There is no provision for the manna not to fall on any day other than the 6 days and rest on the seventh. The manna didn't stop on any other day than the seventh day of the week. Where are the ordinances for the transitional days or the none days, as they call it, for the manna to be delivered? Nowhere is that found in the scriptures. Nowhere. All right. So what are we looking at here? I'm just gonna, well, let me just give you an overview. So we're going through some really good witnesses that really are exposing this seventh day, and of course we know we've been talking about this for the past few teachings, and there's even more witnesses, and I like the one with King David and the Shober and all that, because that's a really strong witness as well. But as you can see, these things can be, can be proven, right? And when we now have a defense, we're able to show people why we believe what we believe based on scripture. We have something to hold on to. Okay. Um, so what we have here is the let me just give you a little bit of information before I go into this. Now, the lunar calendar resets the weekly Shabbat every month, and there are other calendars that reset the week at the beginning of the year, or on or after the equinox. So, like we were talking about that earlier with Brandon. So, there are calendars out there that will, start around the equinox, or the day after, or the day on the equinox. But the problem is that some of them restart the actual week also. And so we start running into some problems when that happens. Okay. Now the reason this needs to be done for them is because some believe that the weekly days have been married to certain day feast days. You know, I knew somebody that um, um, well, that was basically thinking that every Wednesday was always, every Wednesday was Passover. Some believe that it's actually on Friday, but they're marrying it. They're marrying it to the weeks. We can't do that. and you'll see why in a moment. Okay, now this is not a Torah compliant calendar because the weeks have been shortened or lengthened to make their, their calendar fit. Now, this would simply mean that the beginning of the year would need to always start on the last day of the week, always on Shabbat. Um, in this case, where the where the where the Shabbat is always on Friday. You see, so it has to be reset, and I'll go with that in just a moment. But I just wanted to show you, at least from here to here, as you can see, if we start the Shabbat on the first day of the week, and this is the 15th day, which is what they believe is the first day of unleavened bread, is always here, and the Day of Atonement is always on the Shabbat as well. So this is how they want it to work every single year. Okay. Now, what we're looking at here, we're looking at a calendar. As you can see, there's no 31 days anywhere. This is a 360-day calendar. This is pre-Hezekiah. Okay. In this scenario, we're not going to apply a 365-day year cycle at the end of the year. This is what a calendar will look like I said, when the dial went back 10 degrees. Okay. And this will eliminate many of the calendars that are trying to reset the weekly days after the equinox. So we have this. We have they're married, right? So okay, well, let's take this scenario. Okay, so that means that if this is a Shabbat, the first day of the year, and so is the first day of unleavened bread, and so is the Day of Atonement. That means that the end of the year, okay, would have started would have ended on the second day of the week. Okay, and so the following day should be the first day, correct? I mean, we're talking about a 30-day month here. We're not deviating from that, are we? It's a 30-day month, and the following day should be a Wednesday. Do you see? This is the problem. Wait a second. In order for this to work, the first day of the year has to start on a Shabbat. Well, it's not. It's starting on the third day of the week. Okay. So what do we have here? This is pretty much what you just saw. The day has to end here. Okay. On the 30th of the year, and it should look like this the year after. Okay, it should look like this. But see what happens here. Well, what about what about the Passover and all that? So you see, we're already having a problem, because if that was the case, and we want to stay consistent, 30 days per month, and all that. So what happens here? Passover would actually be now on the second day of the week, not on a Shabbat. So what do they have to do to make this work? Well, what do we know? They have to cut into the week. They got to cut into the week. They got to basically reset the week, thus not being a consistent 7-day week. Okay, so that's a problem, guys, right? So we cannot start resetting weeks as we please. We have a problem here. Now, keep in mind, this is nothing to do with the eliminating those balancing days between a 360 to 365. There's not. This is actually pre-Hezekiah. This is what the calendar would have looked like. Okay, but see, it doesn't work then, and it will not work in the future. They want this to fit this way. Well, what happened to these days here of the week? It's done. You see, they have to restart their Shabbats, and what happens to this four days of the week? So we're going to get rid of the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth day? No, we're not going to do that. All right, and nor that we're going to add it either. So it's really another way that people are just trying to Anytime you see the week shorten or lengthen at the end of the year, as you can see, is they're already cutting into the Shabbat. Whenever people want to marry their days to their feast, the days of the week to the feast, this is what eventually is going to have to happen because they cannot be consistent every year. They cannot. It's impossible. Okay. So okay. Well, and this is the sort of the spirit breaking down the misconceptions of false teachings. So I made that little, um, you know, illustration here for you. The revelation of the covenant calendar has brought to submission the lunar Shabbat and other lunar calendars by only using the word to disprove them. Ephesians 5:6 reads, "Let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of such things the wrath of Yahweh is coming on the sons of disobedience." Don't be deceived by those. Sorry, I got him. By those who don't read Torah, don't read and keep the Torah. All right. Well, I hope you all enjoyed it.